Hey there, I'm John Hayes, and thanks for joining us for this episode of the Founders Trust podcast. I spoke with Andre Kazimierski, the founder of Improovy, which matches customers with vetted, trustworthy painters and home improvement professionals. Andre and I discuss the founding story of Improovy, why he's so invested in changing the status quo for service businesses, his focus on being an engine of delight for his customers, and a whole lot more. So I'm incredibly excited to share his story with you today. So let's jump right in. Today's Startup Spotlight is brought to you by Savier. Savier takes a personalized approach to helping entrepreneurs create a clear path to growth. Through knowledge, coaching, and marketing services, Savier helps entrepreneurs and small business owners apply marketing to achieve their business goals. At Savier, our goal is to empower entrepreneurs to achieve marketing success. Check them out at Savier, that's savvyeur.com today.
So Improvey is a Chicago startup that was created to remove all of the friction between the often arduous relationship between contractors and homeowners. We make it easy and enjoyable for homeowners to upgrade their space by making the lives of contractors easier.
Andre, honestly, I love what you guys are doing because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to find a painter or a plumber or some other contractor. It's just such a pain in the ass. It's so difficult, and there's the back and forth. You're chasing people, figuring out schedules. But with Improvey, it seems like it's all consolidated to just one quick and dirty platform.
Yeah.
The customer life is simpler. The life of the contractor is simpler. And ultimately, everyone ends up with a better experience that takes a lot less time. So let's start with kind of your personal background. I know you have a strong background in service businesses with your family, and ultimately, I'm assuming that's kind of where this came from. But share a little bit more about where the problem for Improvey came from for you that you really wanted to just jump into and solve.
You know, at a young age, so my mom came here from Poland, grew up in the western suburbs. She was a first-generation immigrant, of course, being Polish and first generation. She started a cleaning company, right? And I was part of the business from an early age, just like a lot of sort of first generation families. It was, I remember building her first website when I was like 10 years old and sort of going through and dropping off flyers at the local supermarket over in Riverside, Illinois, where I grew up. And, from a very young age, I saw the struggle of the small business owner. And I always felt compelled and almost like a calling to make her life easier any way I could. And throughout college, and I stayed in Chicago and I stayed around the business, and I worked everything from knocking on doors and all that. But I knew there was a better way to do this. I believe that it shouldn't be this hard to run a service-based business. So, of course, when I was 19, to pay for books and beer in college, I went to DePaul, and my sophomore year, I launched a painting company in the western suburbs. Started knocking on doors in the winter, just grinding through. I must, since then, I've probably knocked on 10,000 doors, and going through that process, I obviously had the same theme of like, there's a better way to do this. And obviously with technology and all the innovation that's come up recently, I'm still surprised that the industry hasn't progressed. So my mom, a couple of years after college, she got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
And I appreciate that. And towards the end, I did make a promise to her that her company, Sophia's Cleaning, I would keep that going, and I would. It's my sort of. It's my, that's how I remember every single day, and I say it every single day. It's incredible, and I built Improvey with that same thought in mind. I imagine that when my mom came here when I was a kid, her life would have been that much easier if the Improvey system existed, and that's kind of how from all the years of contracting and growing up around business owners, it's. Improvey was built to make the lives of business owners like my mom easy. So, and then I also got a place in Chicago, and I had run a painting company for years, stopped doing that, took over her business for a little bit. I couldn't find I was right in the middle of Wicker Park, central Chicago. I couldn't find a painter. Literally, the first thing we did was put paint swatches on I was eating tacos on a cardboard box. And I put paint swatches. The first thing we're going to do is paint. It took me like 2 years to find somebody good. And when I did, it was just a nightmare experience. I'm like, okay, it's still broken. Time to fix it. This is what I was put on this earth to do a little bit. So that's kind of what the antithesis of Improvey and everything that we're building. So,
you know, you can tell a difference between a founder who has lived a problem personally versus one who's, kind of stumbled into it. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it comes from a place of such personal connection and a personal understanding that you have been that customer. You're in their shoes. It's not like you have to find out what that is, both on the customer problem who's looking for a contractor and on the service provider side as well. And it comes through in your voice. It comes through in how you talk about the problem. It's very authentic. And I know I just guarantee that's part of why you guys have experienced such success, because you speak to the problem so clearly. In that, I have a soft spot in my heart for family small business, coming back from that background myself. And I know what that's like. And when you are in the thick of it, it becomes so much more personal. It's not just a problem to solve with a startup. It's a mission, it's a calling. And that really speaks to, I think, your drive and all the success that you've had with Improvey. And I'm very excited to continue following how you guys approach that. So let's dig into the problem a little bit more specifically. When you are the customer, what are the biggest pain points? I mean, we all know it's a pain in the butt, but what are the biggest pain points that your customers are really feeling when they're first thinking about hiring a painter?
You know, I looked at that and I really broke it down where it comes down to trust. It shouldn't be so hard to find a contractor to upgrade your space like that is trusted, that is reliable, that will show up on time, and that'll do a great job. It should be fun. You should look forward to upgrading your space, to painting your house. Like you're transforming your space. You're changing your Zoom background. Like it should be an enjoyable experience. And unfortunately, it isn't. And in the United States, finding a contractor, all around the world, finding a contractor is like a dreaded experience for homeowners. It really shouldn't be that way. This thing should be a lot more fun because the results are incredible. I think, just the feel that you get from a freshly painted house and just making it your own, it should be a fun experience. It should be just as fun to experience it at the end as it is during. So that's really the problem. It should be way easier to do this, like reliable, trust, on time, and it should be easy to actually get a quote. Some painters take weeks or months to even get back to you. We're doing customer research in other markets because we're scaling, and 16 different quote requests. We couldn't get one contractor to call us back.
Man. And that's just not effective. You can't scale that. You can't grow your business that way. And you can't develop good customer relationships that way. And Andre, I love the point that this should be a fun experience. You are refreshing your living space. This is where you're spending hours of your life, especially now, given that we're coming out of a pandemic, and I'm sure everyone's looking for a fresh start in one way or another. But it's supposed to be an environment that you feel comfortable in. Maybe you've moved in a new house, you want a fresh coat of paint, you want to make it your own. And you're right, that totally gets mitigated by a negative experience or a lengthy, painful experience of trying to find someone to help you make that fresh start. Switching to the provider side for a second, obviously service-based businesses tend to be a little bit more manual, tend to be a little bit more difficult to scale on the operational side. But that being said, there's a lot of great tech tools like Improvey that can help take care of some of those back-end functions. So from the provider perspective, what are those biggest pain points and why is it so difficult for painters to get quotes out quickly or efficiently?
Yeah, I think the system is set up for us as contractors to not fail, but to stay stuck. Right? There's 250,000 different painting contractors in the United States, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a low barrier to entry. A lot of times people get really good at painting. They love painting. They're like, oh, I'm going to start a business. And then they're just stuck in the contractor loop, right? So in the summer, you scale up because there's exteriors, there's interiors. Everybody's in the home improvement mood. And then it comes, things get a little bit colder in the winter. Consumer demand is a little bit lower. There's a dip. And you basically have to fire your crews and you're starting all over every single time. And the system is set up in a way that the reason contractors are stuck in this loop is because they see everybody around them stuck in the same loop, and they just think it's that way, right? Like it's like Blockbuster before Netflix came in.
Right? We didn't see the possibilities. We didn't know, right?
We had no idea, right? We had to go in. There were certainly fun parts, grabbing, bunch of crunches at the
that's right.
And snacks and stuff at the Blockbuster and grabbing a video and having that time. But at the same time, it's like, it should be done a better way. And that's where this industry's been stuck for far too long. It's manual. We're digitizing the home improvement service experience by using decades of data that we've accrued running and being some of the top contractors, and just fusing it with technology. And our team, I think the one thing that I'm super excited to talk about is our team, because I'm grateful enough to have worked with some of the most talented human beings on earth that were contractors in that space. And it's thrilling to see what they're doing right now. We just had our best month ever. And some of the tools, and like I said, if my mom was around today, her life would be so much easier. And same with her people too, the contractors that she had working for her. And that's where a lot of people solve the issue of, like, an Angie's List or a home advisor. They sell leads to contractors, right? And contractors aren't happy because half the time they're not great leads. But that's only one step of this process, right? Lead generation and customer acquisition, wow, that's my secret sauce and that's my superpower as a founder. And I love doing it because I got sick of knocking on doors, right? That'll definitely accelerate that. But they only solve one part of the problem. What happens when the job starts? Picking paint colors, making sure that people show up on time. The first 10 minutes of the job are so incredibly important, setting expectations and making sure that everything's involved. And, everybody knows what's going on when. And that's where, contractors want to do a great job. The system is built right now for them to lose, and for the customer to lose as a result. And that's where Improvey starts. It's like we start at the base, which is the contractor. We make the contractor's life easier. They do an incredible job, the job that they want to do as tradespeople. They take a lot of pride in their work. And that's really the difference, right? That's our long-term moat. We don't even call it a moat. We call it an island, because we take it from first click to 5-star review. We take the entire process and make it easy for both people, both sides of the equation, supply and demand. And that's what we just continually innovate, and we keep building on our momentum. And we're seeing it's a generational shift. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit more, but that's a little bit of kind of that problem from the contractor perspective.
Well, that's a great segue, Andre, because one thing that I personally have experienced in trying to find a contractor is it's that vetting process, and it's that trust component that people are really looking for. And you mentioned the generational shift, and now we're willing to get in strangers' cars and go to destinations or have them pick up our groceries, whatever it may be. And so we have allowed services like Improovy and Uber to sort of serve as that vetting of that trust component for us. How do you view Improvey's role in ensuring that you're bringing in the best contractors, you're making sure the job's done right or to a certain quality level, so that your end customer ultimately doesn't really have to think about that trust component? They just know, all right, I'm hiring someone through Improvey. They're going to do a good job. I'm not going to have a headache. How do you think about that? Because it can be tricky to really find that balance of getting a sufficient number of contractors, I'm assuming, but making sure they're people who are doing a really high quality job.
Yeah. So as contractors ourselves, we know what to look for. We know what the right questions to ask. And a lot of times, like I said, contractors want to do a great job. However, there is a misfit, I guess, right? So a crew of two, for example, let's say Mike's painting service, a crew of two attacking a $14,000 job, a giant exterior, probably not the right fit, right? Because that job is going to take 4 weeks. The client's going to be unhappy anyways. Half the time it rains. Like, there's just so many things working against that. And that's, during the vetting process, all of we have a very strict rule of licensed, insured. These are the basics. To even talk to us, you need licensed, insurance, full workers' comp, and then we dive into references. We dive into how often they renew, how many years they've been in business. And we take these data profiles of, we call them super subs or super affiliates.
Okay.
That's our supplier network. And we take these data points, match them with the perfect job for them to succeed. That vetting process is extensive because we, as contractors, we know the things that set the best apart are within that application process. So we're tracking how long it takes a contractor to upload their information, what kind of insurance, the level of insurance, right? We know the different tiers. We know the ones that are the contractors that know what they're doing have a certain profile. We're just taking all this data that we, because we were these contractors and just matching it with the perfect job. And it's just like a synergy. It's like I don't know, it's an engine of delight is it's kind of cheesy, but that's what I call it. But it's, we know what to look for because we were contractors and we were great at what we did. So we just take the attributes that we know are important, put it in our data model, use our algorithm to match them to the perfect job. And we just get smarter every single day. So that's a huge part of the equation, and we're nailing it. So we're stoked.
Absolutely. And honestly, that would make me feel comfortable as an end customer. I mean, I couldn't tell you a square peg from a round hole when it comes to whether a painter is great insurance, whether they're, come with particularly high set of skills, or I could call my buddy or someone who has used them and they could give me a certain experience, but who's to say that that crew didn't flake out on 2 other jobs in the past week? So I really love the level of detail that your team goes into on that vetting process, because that trust component can so quickly and easily be lost, but it really seems like you're hitting every square on every check on the page to make sure that the chances of that are mitigated and that every customer has a great customer experience. And ultimately that's what will keep people coming back. Right. And it's a referral business, which I think works really well for you guys. And that as soon as someone hires through Improvey one time, they're calling their friends, they're calling their family members and giving them the URL so that they can go right through your service to hire next time they need someone to paint the outside deck, right?
Yeah, and we had our first 4-time repeat customer.
Congrats! That is awesome.
So they moved. So we go from one house to the next, right? They moved from the city to the burbs, and we painted both houses. And it's that generational shift that I was talking about. It's once you experience Improvey, like you just don't settle for anything less. And it's 70% of our customers go above and beyond. Like 70% of our customers go out of their way to leave us a 5-star review. Like we don't even ask. Like they take it upon themselves to take the time to actually leave us a review. We've generated hundreds of 5-star reviews. We're actually officially the #1 rated painter in Chicago history. Like the most reviews ever, the #1 rated contractor in the state. And it's that engine of delight. It's like starting at the base, starting at the contractor. When we make them happy and we know what to look for, technology helps us bridge that gap like never before. And that's those data sets and us being able to connect it with the perfect job. It's like, I mean, half the time for startups, it's like you have to find the right time, right? Uber was enabled to streamline that industry because of mobile technology, GPS data, all of that, right? And we see, this contractor shift because of COVID, where people are doing everything virtually. We're just I feel a little bit grateful to be at the right place at the right time too, because we're seeing this shift and it's exciting. I mean, now everyone's house is on Zillow, so it's not that hard to actually price it out, right? So
that's right.
Yeah, there's a little bit of secret sauces here and there, but like these are common for us. It should have been this way all along. So.
Well, and I think that's really the key. Everyone talks about, it's a service business. It can't be scaled. There's one way it's done. You're never going to be able to get out of that, human component of it. But Improvey, I think, is one of the top examples I've seen of how you can apply new capabilities through tech to capitalize on the great human component of a service business, right? People forget that there's that relationship building. There's that pride in your work. There are certain things that technology can never even imitate, let alone better, when it comes to being able to provide that kind of very customized service for your customers. And so I think you touched on, it's really an enablement or a complementary aspect of the service business to just make it easier for people, right? It doesn't have to revolutionize the whole business, but it can revolutionize the back end, the logistics, and while keeping those great parts that a service business provides. So I'm really excited. This is terrific, and I know you guys have a lot of great traction both on the revenue side with the reviews. What's your vision for the future? Where do you want to take Improvey next, or what's sort of your rough roadmap in shareable terms to what your vision looks like for the future of your company?
We want to be the easiest way to upgrade your space. Painting services is where we're starting, and then that's an industry we know. We want to streamline every way to upgrade your space, maintain and upgrade your space, make it easy and enjoyable for contractors and homeowners. Where there's a need for streamlining and technology and joy and delight and all of this, like, it should be fun, we're going to make it fun. So we're going to be, we want to build the backbone for the future of the homeowner and contractor relationship.
Well, that is terrific. And honestly, I'm moving into a new apartment in a few months, and I know exactly where I'm looking next time I need to paint that ugly color that I had to overlook when I was first deciding to sign up. So yeah, terrific stuff. Let's jump into a little bit more about your experience as a founder personally. I mean, you're coming from a service business, small business background. How did you think about sort of the transition, or what aspects of your background and kind of that entrepreneurial small business side have you thought about as you're sort of building and growing now of a more traditional tech startup, right? Because there are some differences, but I think there's a lot of carryover. And how have you sort of translated your experience into now being a founder of a more focused tech startup?
Yeah, I think it's a different approach, because it's a continuous innovation approach that's focused on, for us, it's like we want to create a world where our customers cannot imagine their lives without us, and our contractors cannot imagine their lives without Improvey 10 times better. Like, that's like my rule of thumb. We have to make it 10 times better. So as a small business owner, you've got revenue targets that you want to hit. You want to streamline things because of revenue. When it comes to a startup and using technology to continuously innovate, it's creating your North Star as a tech startup is to change the lives of both the providers and customers using your service. But like, that continuous innovation never stops. Like, it's not like we take a break. Like, I had a 4-hour meeting, today with the team where we were just talking about our vision and the next steps of our tech stack and how to automate things further, and with that North Star of making the customer and contractors' lives easier. And it's getting that and building an incredible team to continuously innovate. Sometimes we have to sacrifice short-term growth for the long-term vision. And that's something that I'm learning as a startup founder. It might be a little bit painful Q1, but Q2, Q4, and 5 years down the line, we're that much better because we chose to get better and innovate further and not rest on our laurels. So there is a mindset change that running a tech startup, from bootstrapping, going into a considerable company now, that's completely different. But it's a lot of fun, I think a lot of small business owners have those skills, and it's just, you get stuck in your way. You get stuck with using the same CRM, using the same system. You're like, there's not a better way to do this. And having a tech startup forces you to continuously get better and better, because, like I said, we don't want to create a moat. We want to create a freaking island where nobody can touch us, because we believe we were put on this earth specifically to solve this problem, and it's not going to stop Q1 of 2021. It'll continue 10 years down the line. So yeah, that's kind of how we're looking at it. So
you touch on that balance between sort of the short-term gains and losses and the longer-term ones. And I think that's a terrific insight, because when you're a small business owner, this is your primary source of cash flow. So you don't really think about short-term losses, because you need that to pay bills and to pay your company, personnel, et cetera. And I think maybe it's just a little bit of a different perspective you can take when you are in kind of that iterative tech type environment. How have you thought about that balance when it comes to the short term versus the long term, especially when you do have people like investors, other external stakeholders who are involved in your journey and have certain sets of expectations and often have competing sets of expectations. So, how have you personally thought about how you go about balancing some of those short term versus long term things and how you think about prioritizing different aspects of your company into those buckets?
That's a great question. And it really comes down to our North Star. Is what we're doing today and the systems we're developing and building internally, and is it making the lives of our customers and our contractors better? That is our North Star. That is our driving force. It's not profitable, even though, we are profitable and we are growing. When it comes down to it, we want to change the way the industry works. We're not going to do that overnight. So that's sort of our North Star. So taking these metrics, this customer review conversion rate, and creating a bonus or incentive system for our contractors that get an extra set of paintbrushes, or when customer specifically mentions them in a review, and you actually read our reviews, like they mention them specifically, so that relationship that you're talking about between the contractor and Improvey, or contractor and homeowner, is not lost when you use Improvey. You still have that trust. You still have that level of familiarity. There's still going to be an 80-20. 80% of it could be automated, but there's still a 20%, because this is a considerable cost for a homeowner, and it's a considerable jump to make for a contractor with our platform. Yes, the grass is greener when you're using Improvey, but it is hard to, without that relationship. There's still going to be an aspect in this industry that it has to exist, and on a lot of levels, we're taking what works for us and solving the problems for us, and we're seeing that as a result. So I know I veered off in a lot of different directions, which I tend to do, but that's kind of how we're looking at it. And it's using those North Stars. That's what informs our decision. We're so lucky to have the investors we do, and building the network we have around Techstars. And that's one of the things I could give as advice for founders. When you surround yourself with great people, great things happen. And there is the wrong type of investor to work with as well. So you have to be very, very, just as picky as we are about our contractors, we're picky around who we surround ourselves with. So I think that's a huge point to make. And as long as our investors align with that vision, that's really what's most important. That's what creates $1 billion unicorn company that we want to become. So
let's jump into a little bit, Andre. You talked about your North Star, and it really seems like that's where everything's coming from. And that's certainly driven you to incredible success, going through the Techstars program, graduating, building out an incredible revenue base, reviews base. How have you thought about aligning yourself, or how do you understand if someone's aligned with that North Star? Because a lot of people can pay lip service to it and say it's great, but are there certain things you look for, whether it's in an investor, in an accelerator program even, that you grew to understood meant that this person or this program, this resource was aligned with really where you wanted to go and ultimately how you're building your company? Because people have a lot of different agendas, not that that's necessarily a bad thing. They just answer different people, whether it's an investor to LPs, whether it's an accelerator program to the board of directors, whatever it may be. So how have you really thought through making sure something is aligned with the North Star of Improvey?
Yeah, I think it's two main points that I'd like to make along those lines. You look for people who treat others that like they want to be treated, and that's something that every single I wake up every single morning. I want to make someone's day. Like, John, I want to make your day. I want this to be the best interview you've ever had. Okay, this is my number one thing. I delight in that, right? And I want people around me that give me energy first and foremost. So treating others as you want to be treated. Empathy, that takes empathy, that takes introspection. It takes being grateful for surrounding yourself with the right kind of people. Like that's part of it. the second part is people that give me energy. I think that's something I touched upon, but people that give me energy, when I look forward to meetings, and I should be able to build that relationship where I go in, I know, your kid's graduating from college, like building that relationship and just like that's, so I was talking to a fellow founder in the Techstars program who, he was on Monday, he was having a rough day, and he was getting a little bit sick, and like I could tell he's just a little bit losing energy towards the end of the day, and it was a late meeting, and so he lived close by, and I dropped off a care package for him with an Improvey, because he's like, I love that hat, like that's awesome. I'm like, all right, I'll take care of you. So I literally dropped, and he said he was thinking about painting his place too, so I dropped off some supplies and an Improvey care package with a Improvey shirt, Improvey hat, and anything I could do to brighten his day. And so we look for people that give us energy, who share in our vision, who surrounding yourself with people who've done it too. Like when I look at an investor, I look at former founders or current founders or operators, and that's something that I really value, because they can empathize and they could treat me how they would want to be treated in the same shoes years ago. So
of course. Well, I love that story, and it's I think it's just a testament to who you are as a person, Andre. But it's even just caring for your fellow founder that way. That's an example to your team too. Of this is how Improvey treats people. This is how, even if he never signs up with your server, so even if he's just painting his back fence and doesn't need to hire someone, right?
Yep.
It's just that mindset of how do we express our North Star in everything we do, whether it's a paying customer, whether it's a phone call, whatever it may be. And I love that, because it's people see that and they recognize it. And I know sometimes we think maybe that gets lost in this more remote environment of COVID that we're fortunately coming out of, but it doesn't, and I think people value those types of interactions more than ever. So it's just, and you don't have to worry, because this interview is already at the top of my list. I'm very excited to have you on. You have made my day, certainly, just by alleviating my stress of knowing when I need to paint my interior of my apartment coming up. I know exactly where to turn. But I guess one more question here before we move into our 3-question grand finale. But from your experience, now you've gone through this, you've been in the Techstars program, you connect with a lot of different founders. Where do you think most founders get tripped up in the course of building their company?
I was reading a book. Something that I do on a continual basis is just, I have a thirst for just knowledge and just getting better and learning. And I mean, every week I read at least 4 books, like literally have 4 different audiobooks queued up for different, if I hit a low point or something, like I need a little bit more energy, I use, I need a bigger long-term focus, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, that's a huge one for me. Just to get refocused. I think where founders get tripped up is they don't understand the problem they're truly solving. The hardest thing to do, the hardest realization, and I've seen other founders do this, where they're building a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. So start with the pain, right? Really understand the pain, because inherently, right, as a contractor, I felt the pain. As a homeowner, I felt that pain. And then I developed that through my customer interviews and contractor interviews and really understanding their pain points. Start with the pain, solve for that. And that's when you can really build a transformational product. And things just kind of fall in line when you're focused on that. So that's first and foremost. Don't build something without really understanding the pain that you're solving and who it's affecting. So that empathy side of it is incredibly important. So easy to just run in one direction. But if it's in the wrong direction and nobody's better as a result, like, why are you running in the first place?
Right. And it's sometimes I think people just have that creative energy and they want to get started and they think they know the problem, or they feel like they've got a good enough grasp on the problem and they think, got to iterate, we got to go fast, we got to beat the competition, establish our moat. And sometimes that initial direction aren't quite the first steps you should be taking. And it can be very difficult to understand, and sometimes you don't even know until you're a little bit further along the road whether those were the right steps. But I think certainly with your experience, having been in the industry, but also having been a consumer of those services, it was very obvious to you. Do you think then that founders who maybe don't necessarily have the background that you do, coming from that industry that in which you're trying to build a problem, do you think there's necessarily a disadvantage, or that what steps can they take then, maybe where they have a general familiarity with a problem, but really need to focus on the more specifics, but they know they're onto something. They just maybe don't have quite that fit yet.
Yeah, I think it's just interviewing the stakeholders and really getting a true understanding of who the problem that you're solving, or your customer base, like really getting to understand their process. When do they decide to buy? What steps of the funnel do they make a decision? What are the pain points along the way that you can start slowly chipping away at to make their lives easier? So it's not only asking questions or giving out surveys, but truly like looking them in the eye, virtually or otherwise, and asking, why do what is it that you're experiencing it? And then understanding the context of it, right? So it's not only understanding what they say, but why they're saying it. What time of day were you looking up, finding a painter? Why was it hard? What was your first experience? The why question is kind of loaded, but it's more so understanding the contextual. I understood that between, Monday and Tuesdays, there is a uptick of people looking for painters, specifically in the beginning of the week. Like I know when to target when people were looking for things. Even being in the industry for 14 years beforehand, I didn't know what I didn't know until I went out and found out. And don't be afraid to do that. Embrace it, because it's all part of the process. And don't stop. Like just because you understood the problem, like you have to now develop the problem, and then you create a solution. You test it out. You put it out there in the market. Don't be afraid if it has a couple of bugs, but be afraid if you don't get the feedback to understand how that affects your final, your final shareholder here, which is your customers. So that's a huge part of it. And the other side of it is like, make sure you recruit the best people within your network and otherwise, and that believe in that same vision, share the same values, and who can do the same thing at a scalable level. So you're not going to do it yourself.
It's impossible. It's impossible. But
yeah.
That's, I think with the insights you've given, Andre, I think people are well on their way to really thinking about that customer problem in a more detailed way, and making sure they're doing everything they can to take those first few steps in the right direction and not get off on the wrong foot. So transitioning into our 3-question grand finale here. I love these questions. I ask them of every guest we have on the show. But what's been your favorite moment working with Improvey so far?
Yeah, that's I saw that question, and it's like, I think my favorite moment was the first customer interview we ever did. We had our first all hands Improvey meeting, right? So we had our Chris, our production and sales manager, come in from, he manages everything in Chicago from St. Louis.
Okay.
And he came in, and I had the rest of my team there. And we interviewed Annie, one of our customers, and we talked to her for an hour, and it was just the most insightful, fun. Like we drilled down, like she was watching Tiger King, right? Tiger King back then, like a couple of months ago, it was popular, right? So she was watching Tiger King. She had a beer. That's how she found Improvey. Like we understood when she searched. She used Google My Business to find us, to message us. We talked about, how she felt about a 2-minute quote, right? What did she feel during that entire, the initial process? And then when actually, working at the end of that interview, she said, it was my first time buying a house or buying a place, finally getting my place. Working with Improvey was the least stressful part of the entire process. And she's a 3-time repeat customer now, so I think that was a realization for me in a lot of ways, where I'm like, this needs to happen. We need to make it happen. And this is what the result is. And that North Star of just delight, that's what we're going for. So, that first realization, that customer interview was just incredible. Thank you, Annie. And thank you, team, for making that happen. So that was awesome.
That first validation is always so special. And it's kind of like your first dollar bill on the wall, right? In more traditional terms, but it's so great to hear that when you have those early advocates and they come back, they are three-peat customers, and they are just there for the business, but it's because the business has made their lives so much easier. There's something incredibly powerful about that, both in a professional and a personal sense as well. So our second question here, in what ways have you personally grown the most through your experience with Improvey?
Wow. Every single day there's a new lesson to learn. We're going into a transition where we're going from the bootstrapping phase into the organization, a mega organization that we're building, and we have new team members coming in that share our values and all of that. And that transition is kind of tough, because there were a couple of times where I would still go into that old sort of founder mindset, first couple of month mindset, where you're micromanaging. But the thing is, when you find A players and the best people that you can for that specific job, like our director of sales and marketing, Chris, like he's incredible. He's the best salesperson on earth. He is the best. Our new COO, Carr, I believe he's building out the tech stack and automating it. I believe he is the best person on earth to do that. Stay the heck out of their way so that these A players can thrive and do what they do. Obviously be there as feedback. So that role from bootstrap to big organization, there's a lot of, there's a lot of traps that you can fall into. And, that micromanaging level, like when you find incredible people, let that, you don't hire Michael Jordan and say, hey, you're playing 2 minutes a game. Like you give them the ball, right? And that's when I really saw this thing really flourish, when I got out of the way as a founder and trusted my team. So, Chris is putting up 100 points a game.
Well, and it's difficult to make that mindset shift, I imagine, right? Because you're in the weeds on everything from day one. And so eventually, but that's an incredible accomplishment to be able to take a step back, hand it off to someone who's also an A player, and let them run with it, and, let them develop things in a way that, they know, because that's their specialty. And it's hard to do, but it's a necessary shift. And getting to that point is a tremendous accomplishment, and very excited for you and the Improvey team that you've been able to find such great people to bring in to help grow the company and follow that North Star. So last question here, Andre. We always want to help the guests that we bring on support their startup journeys, help get them to that next level. So what's the one thing Improvey needs to really take that next step, whether it's introduction to capital partners, strategic partners, a key hire, whatever it may be? What's the one thing that the Founders Trust community can help Improvey with to help make sure that you guys are following that North Star and get you to that next level?
Yeah, within the next month, we're going to be closing out our round of funding after Techstars. So we're looking for 2 to 3 great angels within the Chicago ecosystem, just nationally. That would be a great addition to our incredible team of angels. I can't be more grateful for the Techstars network and everybody that's around us. Like, I'm not going to name them by names, but you guys, I can't, like, months ago, I couldn't imagine where we'd be at without you guys. And we want to continue that. So that's, I think everything else, it's going to fall into place because we have the best people on earth doing what we're doing, and we're passionate, and we believe that there needs to be change, and we're the ones to do it. So yeah, we're really grateful. I'd say the last thing is, if you need a painter in Chicago, you just Google painter Chicago. If we're not number one, then call or text me. You have our public number there. If you need a painter in Chicago or St. Louis, hit us up. We're ready to go, and we'll get a 24-hour, 48-hour turnaround, and you'll be happy as a result. We'll make it fun. So
that's terrific, Andre. Well, I come from a big family, got many cousins, and a lot of people are moving into new homes. So I'll start there, and we'll certainly share your info on Improvey with some angels in our network as well to help you close out that round. Andre, honestly, this has been a terrific conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really couldn't be more excited for everything you're doing at Improvey, both at a personal level with your own growth, coming from your small business background, taking it into a new emerging tech startup that's really dominating this scene. And we're just so excited to see where you continue to take it. We'll be following your journey. We'll definitely be using the service. We got a lot of painting projects coming up this summer. And honestly, just thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us today.
hey, grateful for the opportunity, for the platform, and for your time. So thank you, everybody.
So let me know what you think of today's episode. Comment on our social media or send us an email at founderstrustpodcast@markettrust.io. Now go get building.